Hello everyone, welcome to the daily current affair analysis brought to you by Shankar IAS Academy, 2nd August 2025. Displayed here are the list of topics that we will be discussing. The first topic is about the Indian monsoon because according to the prediction from the Indian Meteorological Department, in the second phase of the monsoon, the India will receive above normal rainfall. And the second article, ICG ruling on climate obligations, because recently the International Court of Justice emphasized that it is not just the moral responsibility but also a legal responsibility of the states to ensure the people are protected from the harm of the climate change. And the next is the Viksit Bharat 2047. So we know that now the nation is moving forward with this vision Viksit Bharat 2047 to transform India into a developed country, but there are certain challenges. So we will look into what are the challenges and what can be done. The next is the article about National Legal Service Authority. So because recently there is a finding that the legal aid system in India is facing a resource constraint. So we will look into it. And the next is the India-US trade tariff conflict, because we can see that the Trump administration has once again imposed the 25% tariff on the Indian products, and this will particularly affect the Indian sectors of textile, pharmaceuticals, and automobiles. So we will look into it. And the final, in the end of the video, we will be discussing the prelims practice question. And without much delay, let's begin our discussion with the first article. Above normal rain likely in India in second half of monsoon season. IMD. The article is taken from the Hindu. So we know that the nation already experienced an early onset of monsoon this year because of the active phase of Madden-Julian oscillation, and according to the recent report from the Indian Meteorological Department, the nation will continue to experience above normal rainfall in the second half of the monsoon. So let us discuss more about this news article. So first we'll start with the basics about the monsoon. We know that monsoon are the large scale wind that blow from the Indian Ocean to the Indian subcontinent, and coming to the mechanism, we know that during the time of summer the low pressure system will be formed over the Indian subcontinent because of the high temperature, and the land will heat more rapidly than the water. And coming to the Indian Ocean, the Indian Ocean will have high pressure because the water will be relatively cooler than the land, and as a result we can see that the wind, it will usually blow from high pressure region to low pressure region, and here also the wind will blow from high pressure region to low pressure region, and it will carry a lot of moisture and gives rainfall in the Indian subcontinent. So this is a mechanism behind the Indian monsoon. So coming to the current update from the Indian Meteorological Department, India likely to receive above normal rainfall during the month of August to September, that is the second half of the Indian monsoon, and there are certain exceptions like the regions of the northeast, the parts of eastern India, central India, southwestern peninsular India will experience only below normal rainfall. And coming to the data between June, July, we can see that the nation already recorded above normal rainfall. That is currently the nation has recorded 474.3 millimeter rainfall between June and July, and this is considered as above normal because usually we will receive only 445.88 millimeter, and that means 6% more this year. So coming to the climatic and oceanic influences behind the current active monsoon, the first is the active phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation. So the Madden-Julian oscillation, we know that it's a large scale atmospheric disturbance that travel from the west to east along the equator, and this Madden-Julian oscillation has it has equal ability to either enhance or suppress the rainfall. For example, imagine that this Madden-Julian oscillation is active over this region. Then in this region the rainfall will be high, but at the same time this region and this region will experience only below normal rainfall. And fortunately this year the Madden-Julian oscillation was active over the Indian Ocean, and that is why we experienced the early onset of monsoon. And the next is the formation of 6 low pressure system in the month of July, and out of the 6, 4 got intensified into depression, and out of the 6, 4 are land formed over the land. And the next is the neutral phase of the ENSO, that is El Nino southern oscillation, and the second half of the monsoon will also experience weak La Nina. So this, even though the La Nina is weak, it can still enhance the Walker cell. So what is Walker cell? Walker cell is the movement of or the circulation of air masses in the Pacific region. So during the time of Walker cell, the western Pacific will be warmer while the eastern Pacific will be relatively cooler. So we know that whenever there is a cool climate, the pressure will be high. As a result, the wind will blow from the high pressure system to low pressure system, and as a result, because of the enhanced Walker cell, the Walker cell can support the easterly trade wind, and this easterly trade wind can support the or enhance the Indian southwest monsoon. And according to the report from the Indian Meteorological Department, currently there is a break in the Indian monsoon, and this is not associated with the monsoon trough. So what is mean by monsoon trough? Monsoon trough are the it is a low pressure system that is prevailing in the northern part of India, that is extending from the northeastern part of India to the Bay of Bengal. So what is this phenomena exactly? So when the monsoon wind enters into the Indian subcontinent, this monsoon trough will shift towards the north. That means it will shift towards the foothills of Himalayas. So as a result, the wind with the moisture will converge towards this region, and in this short period, the nation will experience. That means the parts except the Himalayan regions will experience a break in the monsoon. So this phenomena is known as monsoon trough, and according to the report from the Indian Meteorological Department, this break, the current break in the Indian monsoon, is not associated with the monsoon trough. And coming to the trend, rainfall trend in the northeastern part of India. So this is a short concern. So we can see that this is a sixth consecutive year the northeastern part of India is recording low rainfall or below normal rainfall. So we can see that the northeastern part of India is known for rainfall, especially the regions like Cherrapunji. But this is a fifth consecutive year the region is recording below normal rainfall. And if you take the trend of the last 30 years, we can see that there is a continuous decline of the monsoon rainfall in the northeastern India, according to the analysis from the Indian Meteorological Department. And coming to the importance of the monsoon in India, so it supports nearly 80% of India's annual rainfall, and it supports 42% of India's population depending on the agriculture, and it contributes nearly 18.2% of India's GDP according to the report from 2024-25, and it is crucial for refilling of the reservoirs, irrigation system, and drinking water. So in this topic, we discussed why India will experience above normal rainfall in the second half of the monsoon, what are the reasons, and then we also discussed some of the phenomena like monsoon, Wakasal, monsoon trough, and the importance of the monsoon too. So with this, we will move to the next article. Can ICJ ruling force rich nations to pay for historical emissions? The article is taken from The Hindu. So we know that recently a group of small states, they introduced a resolution in the UN General Assembly seeking advice from the International Court of Justice regarding the legal obligation of the states towards the climate change. And on 23rd July 2025, the International Court of Justice gave an advisory opinion that the nations are not just morally responsible, they are legally responsible to prevent the harm caused due to the climate change. And this ruling from the International Court of Justice holds a significant value for the domestic legal action and climate justice advocacy. So, Vanuatu. So whenever we're talking about the climate change in the recent times, we are also talking about this nation Vanuatu. And we saw this Southern Pacific nation and their enthusiasm in the COP29. COP29, we know that it was held in the Azerbaijan's capital Baku. And in the COP29, the nations, including Vanuatu, emphasized a lot of climate change policies. Vanuatu advocated for the implementation of fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty, which is aiming for the phased reduction of the fossil fuel, and they even have their own domestic policies to limit the carbon emission, and they are the members of the global league methane pledge that is aiming to reduce the methane emission. So in this way, the Southern Pacific nation is very active in the in advocating the climate justice, because we can see that the southern nations, these are very small nations, and they are the most affected because of the current climate crisis. And not only the Vanuatu, even the Tuvalu, another island nation located in the Southern Pacific, they are affected because of the rising sea level. And we already discussed this in the last video, the Australia, they brought a reform in their visa policy, and every year 100 Tuvalu people can migrate to Australia. So we can see that how much this climate change is affecting the small and vulnerable states. So coming to the advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice, the nature of this opinion is not legally binding. That means it is not necessary for the nations to implement the ruling from the International Court of Justice. And in this ruling, the court emphasized the framework such as UNFCCC, that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which was introduced in the Earth Summit of 1992, and the Paris Agreement of 2015, which is aiming to contain the global warming by 2 degrees above the pre-industrial level. And next, it emphasized the importance of universal declaration for the human rights, because we can see that the ongoing climate crisis is not just affecting the economy, production, or the environment. It is affecting the rights of the people to live peacefully. And therefore the Indian Supreme Court also emphasized the right to clean environment under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. That means if you are living in a neighborhood, and if your neighborhood people are polluting your imagine that your neighborhood people are polluting your well, then you can file complaint, because they are violating your fundamental right to live, and that is guaranteed under the Constitution, Article 21. And the next is the UN Convention on the Law of Sea to prevent the transboundary harm, because we can see that recently, that means two years back, there was an allegation against China from the Southeast nations like Philippines, that the China, they are dumping the nuclear waste into the Eastern Sea, and this is significantly affecting the livelihood of the fisherman in the Southeast Asian nations. And coming to the highlights, we can see that obligate states to act on emissions under the international law. That means, like the court said, it is not just the moral responsibility, it is the legal responsibility, and it reaffirms the target 1.5 limitation of the global warming, according to the findings of IPCC, that is International Panel on Climate Change. And this is a major objective, not the one of the, it is a major objectives of the Paris Agreement of 2015, and lays moral and legal groundwork for the vulnerable nations to push for climate accountability. So we can see that recently Fiji, Vanuatu, Tuvalu, these nations are in the forefront advocating for the climate justice. And coming to the legal implications, so first is, even though it is non-binding, it strengthens the climate litigation in the domestic court. For example, last year we saw the Great Indian Bustard case. That means the electric pole in the state of Rajasthan is affecting the livelihood of the great bustard, and therefore the court emphasized that for the going for the underground electric cable to protect the life of the Great Indian Bustard. So you can cite the Great Indian Bustard while writing the mains answer. And there is another case, that is T.N. Godavarman Tirupalpad case. So that in this case the Supreme Court interpreted the term forest. So what is mean by forest? And this is very relevant these days because of the ongoing climate change, and serves as a reference in the national climate litigations, yes, like the Great Indian Bustard case, and be cited by the civil society and environmental groups. So we can go for more public litigations for the protection of vulnerable communities or the endemic species. Coming to the limitations regarding the enforcement of the ruling from the International Court of Justice. Like I mentioned, it is non-binding. That means it is not necessary for the nations to implement, and there is no direct compensation mechanism for the historical emission. We know that followed by the industrial revolutions, the present developed nations were more responsible in the past for the emission of pollutants, but now they are not ready to take the responsibility, and there is no direct compensation mechanism also for the transfer of capital or for the transfer of fund to deal with the present climate crisis. And enforcement through UN Security Council is unlikely due to the geopolitical vetoes. We know that the difference of opinion within the United Nations Security Council, because the interest of the parties are changing. If a policy is supported by Russia, then it will be vetoed by Russia. So we can see that the lack of coordination between the members of the UN Security Council affects the implementation of the policy of the ruling from the International Court of Justice. So coming to the institutions that we discussed in the news. First is the International Court of Justice. So it settles the disputes between the states and also gives advisory opinion regarding the questions raised by the nations. For example, in this context, the Vanuatu and other small nations, they raised a question regarding the legal obligation of the states towards the climate change. And the next is the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change. So it is a parent treaty which was discussed in the Rio Summit or the Earth Summit of 1992, and that recognizes the historical disparity between the states regarding the emission of the pollutants. And the next is the Paris Agreement of 2015. It is a legally binding treaty which is aiming to contain the global warming above 2 degrees Celsius of the pre-industrial level. For example, in the pre-industrial world, if the average temperature is 20 degrees Celsius, then the Paris Agreement is planning to limit the global warming by 22 degrees Celsius. So that means the temperature should not exceed 2 degree more than the pre-industrial level. If the pre-industrial level temperature is 20 degrees Celsius, then the temperature should not exceed the 22 degrees Celsius. But the nations should work to limit the global warming by 2.5 degrees Celsius. And the next is the loss and damage fund that was created in that was created in COP27 to assist the vulnerable countries to implement the measures to mitigate or to adapt to the ongoing climate change. And the next is the principal common but differentiated responsibility. This was recognized in the Earth Summit of 1992. And so, what is the reason behind this common but differentiated responsibility? So, like I mentioned, followed by the Industrial Revolution, the developed nations that we are seeing, the West, they emitted more pollutants into the atmosphere. And if you want to know the real impact of the Industrial Revolution on environment, we have to understand that Earth always had a habit of recycling. That means after a particular time, the temperature will be reset by the Earth itself, and that means the Earth will go into a stage of cooling. But this mechanism was affected because of the Industrial Revolution of 18th century that started in the West. And you can see that that time, because of the colonization, majority of the part was controlled by this colonial nations. And when after the after the decolonization, the colonies, that means the former colonies including India, got affected because we could not proceed with the industrialization or liberal economic measures to promote our manufacturing. And that time, that means exactly by 1970s, the climate crisis became a major matter of discussion in the international scenario. And in 1992, in the Earth Summit that was held in Brazil, this summit recognized the common but differentiated responsibility. That means the developed nations who are responsible for emitting more pollutants into the atmosphere or into the environment in the past should take more responsibility than the second world or the third world. And the next is the IPCC, that is International Panel on Climate Change. It is a scientific body providing regular assessment on climate change, and its findings are often cited in the international law. So they are responsible for conducting the regular studies. That means how much a nation has implemented their or fulfilled their obligation towards climate change. And coming to the historical emission debate, so this historical emission debate that divides the world into global north and global south. So Brundic line. So Brundic line is a line that divides the world into two. So according to this Brundic line, the nations above the north, located in the north, are developed, and the nations in the south, they are developing or underdeveloped. And this historical emission is also a matter here, because the industrial revolution is one of the major factors that contributed to the development of the present developed states. And this debate divides the world into global south and global north. And global south, they are looking for industrialization, increasing their manufacturing, but at the same time, this climate crisis is becoming a major challenge or a barrier towards their economic development. And there comes the importance of the common but differentiated responsibility once again. So in this topic, we discussed how the climate change is affecting the global communities and nations, and we also discussed the importance of the recent ruling from the International Courts of Justice regarding the legal responsibility of the states to prevent the harm caused due to the climate change. So with this, we will move to the next article. To become a developed country by 2047, India needs new economic ideas. The article is taken from Indian Express. So we know that now the nation is moving forward with the vision Viksit Bharat 2047, which is aiming to transform the country into a developed nation by 2047. But there are certain challenges. For example, the dominance of China, particularly in the field of minerals, fertilizers, and technology. And on the other side, the changing policies of the United States. For example, now they imposed a 25% tax on Indian products, and this will affect the export of textiles, pharmaceuticals, and automobiles. And we can also see that the ongoing conflict between the Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Palestine, this is also affecting the global harmony. And therefore, in this time, India also need to reconsider our economic policy, or we have to make a shift in our economic policy to achieve the Viksit Bharat in 2047 without much difficulty. So what is meant by Viksit Bharat? Viksit Bharat is a long-term vision launched by the government of India to transform the country into a developed nation by 2047, marking the 100th year of the Indian independence. And for that, now the nation is focusing more on economic prosperity, social advancement, environmental sustainability, and effective governance for the on-time and the strong implementation of the initiatives. And coming to the key challenges associated with achieving the Viksit Bharat 2047, first is the challenges associated with the economy that includes uneven and slow growth. For example, certain sectors are lagging behind, particularly the manufacturing sector. And if you take the region wise also, we can see the unequal growth. For example, the certain regions in the central and the northern India are experiencing low growth rate, while the regions of the south is experiencing high growth rate. The next is the low per capita income that affects the the personal consumption of the individuals. And the next is a high informality. Over 70% of the workforce are currently employed in the informal sector, and this affects their social security. And the next is jobless growth. So this is a phenomena where the sector will grow economically but will not provide sufficient employment. For example, the recent issue of TCS and a few years back, the Infosys also had to shed a lot of people. And the next is the social and human capital challenges that includes education gap between the regions. For example, the states of Mizoram, Kerala have high literacy growth rate, while the states of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar are lagging behind. And the next is healthcare inequity. So we know that the health expense is also increasing day by day, and this affects the marginalized community and low income families. And the next is the gender inequality. According to the Time Use report survey released by the Ministry of Statistical and Program Implementation, saying that women spend more time for work without payment than men. And the next is governance and institutional challenges that include bureaucratic inefficiencies such as misgovernance and mismanagement. And the next is a weak local governance. So we can see that according to the report published by the CAG in 2024, nearly 60% of the urban local bodies face the problem of delayed election, and this affects the decision making in the grassroots level. And the next is the policy inconsistency. So this will affect the implementation of long-term and medium-term policies. And the next is environmental and sustainable challenges that includes the climate change impact. For example, according to the recent index for industrial production, recorded 10-month low growth rate, that is 1.5%. And the reason behind this low growth rate is nothing but the inconsistency in the southwest monsoon. And the next is the pollution and resource degradation, and this is affecting the production of the people. Particularly this will affect their productivity. And the best example is the Delhi. During the time of winter, the Delhi will face the severe problem of air pollution. And the next is the confusion associated with the transition. We know that currently we are depending more on the fossil fuel for energy generation, but a sudden transition can affect the productivity and community and their income. And the next is the geopolitical and global economic challenges that includes the trade war between the countries. For example, now the United States, they are imposing tariff on UK, France, India and China. And the next is China's dominance in, particularly like I mentioned in the beginning, in the field of technology, mineral and fertilizer. And the next is geopolitical tension, that is the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine. And the next is the technological and industrial challenges that includes AI and automation. So we know that we have a lot of initiatives like semiconductor mission, we have a manufacturing mission, we have India AI for the promotion of AI in India. But these are facing certain gaps such as implementation gap. And the next is a low R&D investment. So recently we brought a reform in the Anusudhan Bhavan to reduce the gap between industries and academics, but still the allocation for the research is still lagging behind. And the next is the manufacturing bottlenecks that is associated with formalities regarding starting of an enterprise and all. So the complex formalities will discourage the people, particularly the entrepreneurs from the grassroots level. And the next is the challenges associated with the changing demography. We know that according to the prediction, we will have a large aged population by 2040s, and therefore providing opportunity for them is also a challenge now. And that is why recently we can see that there is a call for silver economy, adoption of silver economy that promotes promotes opportunity for the aged population also. And the next is the youth unemployment rate. So according to the ILO report in 2023, the global unemployment, the youth unemployment rate stood at 16.5%, sorry, 15.5%. But at the same time, we can see that in India, the youth unemployment rate is just 13.7%, even though it is lower than the global average. But the population of India is very high. Therefore, even though the rate is very low, even in percentage, this will affect a large section of the youth population. And coming to the solutions, what can be done? First is reforming the economy. That means promoting inclusive and sustained growth. For that, we have the PLI, that is Production Linked Incentive Scheme. And currently, we are in PLI 2.0, which is focusing more on manufacturing of hardware. And the next is the formalizing economy. For that, we have a GST regime. So GST regime has unified the tax regime in India, and the Udyam portal for the MSME registration. So this will promote the entrepreneurs from the rural area or in the remote area. The next is boosting job creation. For that, we have the Vishwakarma Yojana to promote the traditional artisans in the rural area. And next is social and human capital. Regarding that, we have a national education policy to improve the education quality. And the next is strengthening the healthcare access. For that, we have the universal scheme, that is Pradhan Mantri Ayushman Bharat Jan Arogya Yojana, which will provide 5 lakh insurance coverage, health coverage to the poor families. And the next is regarding the women empowerment. We have the Stand Up India, which is focusing on entrepreneurship in among the women, and Mahila Samman Savings Certificate, which is promoting the saving in the women population. The next is to address the inequality. We have the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, which is focusing on eradication of poverty and importance of direct benefit transfer. We know that direct benefit transfer, this will be very useful for preventing the leakage, and this initiative is launched in providing benefit under the Pradhan Mantri Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So this will prevent the leakage and ensures the justified or reasonable distribution to the beneficiaries. And the next is the governance and institution reforms. For that, we have to improve the efficiency of the bureaucracy, and for that, the government of India launched the Karma Yogi initiative. And the next is empowering local bodies. Like I mentioned, 60% of the local bodies did not experience election, or they are facing delayed election, according to the report from the CAG, that is Comptroller and Auditor General in 2024. And therefore, this has to be addressed. And the next is Samvitva scheme. So the Samvitva scheme is very important this year, because this is a 5th year of the Samvitva scheme. This was launched in 2020, and 2025 is the 5th year. And under this initiative, so it is an initiative launched under the collaboration of Department of Revenue and the Ministry of Panchayat Raj, and the rural survey is the main objective. And under this initiative, currently we have distributed nearly 1 lakh plus digital rural property card. And the next is ensuring the policy stability. So implementing the policy is also very important. Ensuring the timely implementation is very, very important. And for that, we have the Pragati portal, that is proactive governance and the timely implementation. So this Pragati portal will look into the on-time implementation of the initiatives. And coming to the environmental and the sustainable solutions. So first is focusing on mitigation. For that, we have the National Solar Mission, International Solar Alliance. This was launched by India in 2015, and PM Kusum initiative for promotion of the solar pump. So India is a tropical region, therefore we are focusing more on utilizing the solar energy to ensure the sustainable development and promotion of sustainable energy. And the next is the improving waste management and pollution management. For that, we have the National Clean Air Program. So we can see that under this National Clean Air Program, we are focusing on air pollution, and this is strongly implemented in the state of in the Union Territory of Delhi during the time of the winter. And the next is Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So we have the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan urban and rural for rural sanitation and urban sanitation. And Surat is considered as the most cleanest city according to the survey. And the next is a global and strategic engagement that includes diversifying the trade options. So recently we engaged with the UK, and we signed the UK-India Free Trade Agreement, right? And we can also have trade relation with other alternatives, including Australia and the UAE. And strengthening the domestic supply, that includes promoting the initiatives like Making India and Atmanirbhar Bharat. Both are focusing on promoting the self-reliance of India. And the next is the enhancing geopolitical presence. For example, we had the presidency of G20 last year, and through that we addressed the interest and the concerns of the global South, and now India is becoming the leader of the global South. And the next is a technological industrial transformation, and that includes investment in the field of artificial intelligence and future technologies like semiconductors. And for that, we have the India AI mission, Digital India mission. So India AI mission is focusing on developing, and last year in 2024 March, the Union Cabinet approved this initiative, and which is focusing more on developing an AI growth environment in India. And the next is a Digital India mission, which is focusing on improving the governance through digitalization. And we also have a Samar Udyog initiative for promotion of the smart manufacturing. And the next is increasing the research and development spending. For that, we have recently brought a reform in the Nisudhan Bhavan, which is focusing on reducing the industrial and academia gap. And next is revamping the industrial policy that includes promoting the Startup India, which is for promoting the entrepreneurship. And the next is the insolvency and bankruptcy code to ensure the proper corporate management in India. And the next is the demographic utilization. Like I mentioned, the aging population will increase by 2040s, and therefore we need to create opportunities for them. And at the same time, the another major luck for India at the present is the large youth population, and therefore we need to promote the youth. We have to create opportunities for them. So for that we have a Skill India mission, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Both are focusing on skill development. And recently the Ministry of Skill Development and World Economic Forum, they together formed an initiative known as India Skill Accelerator, which is also focusing on skill development and preparing the aging population. For that we need to promote the silver economy, and at the same time we have to enhance the scope of Adal Pension Yojana, national program for the healthcare of the elderly population. So in this topic we discussed what is Viksit Bharat and what are the challenges and what can be done. So based on this, try to answer this the mains practice question. The question is, evaluate the steps taken by the government in achieving the goal of Viksit Bharat 2047. So it's a 15 marks question and you have to write around 250 words. And in this question, you have to address at least 5 aspects. That means what are the initiatives that we have taken to ensure the stability of the economy, what are the initiatives that we have taken to utilize the demography, and what are the initiatives taken to ensure the sustainable development, inclusive development, and the financial inclusion. So at least the 5 aspects. So try to answer the question and post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for an answer. Now it's time to move to the next article. Boost the capacity of legal aid system. The article is taken from The Hindu. So we know that providing proper legal aid is very important to ensure the social justice, and it is one of the directions given by the constitution to the state, and therefore the legal aid system has to be strengthened. But in the recent times, the Indian legal aid system is facing a lot of resource constraints. So in this background, let us discuss more about this article. So first we look into the legal aid in the constitution. So we know that article 39A of the constitution talks about the equal justice and the free legal aid. Therefore the state has the responsibility to provide equal justice and legal aid to the people, particularly the people from the vulnerable communities. That includes the people who are suffering from any disability, economically backward, people who became the victims of the natural calamity. So therefore it is a responsibility of the state to ensure equal justice and free legal aid to everyone. And the next is the Article 14 and 22 clause 1 of the constitution, and according to this, the constitution of India make it obligatory for the state to ensure equality before law and a legal system which promotes justice on the basis of equal opportunity to everyone. That means there is no separate law for different community or different based on different class and all. So everyone is equal before law, and the law is applicable to everyone equally. And coming to the NALSA, that is National Legal Service Authority. So it is established under the National Legal Service Authority Act of 1987 to provide the free legal aid service to the weakest section of the society and to organize the Lok Adalat for amicable settlement of the dispute. So this will reduce the burden on the court, and it will reduce the expenditure of the people. So we know that going for a case in the court will take a long time, and it is really it needs a lot of money. Therefore this type of constraints can be removed, and that is the objective of the National Legal Service Authority. And the National Legal Service Authority is housed at the Supreme Court of India, and it offers the free legal aid, holds local adalat, and also you can see that the state legal service authorities are coming under the National Legal Service Authority, and they are responsible for conducting the lok adalat in the state level and providing legal aid in the state level. And coming to the district level, we have the District Legal Services Authority to provide the free legal aid and the service. And coming to the challenges faced by the legal aid system in India. First is the limited reach of the legal aid. So currently we are targeting to provide coverage to at least 80% of the population, but only 15.5 lakh people reached for the legal aid between the 2023 and 24. And the next is one legal aid clinic serves nearly 163 villages, showing the limited accessibility in the rural area. And the next is the concerns associated with the budget. So out of the total justice budget, only 1% is allocated for the legal aid. That means total justice budget covers police, prison, judiciary, and legal aid. And out of this, only 1% covers is provided for the legal aid. And the total allocation has increased from 601 crore in 2017-18 to 1086 crore in 2022-23. But at the same time, we can see that the allocation for the legal aid is getting reduced, and the utilization of the National Legal Service Authority fund also declined from a 75% to 59%. And the next is the restricted use of fund. So we can see that according to the guidelines of 2023, the State Legal Service Authority needs the prior approval to spend more, resource on staff, vehicle, equipment, outsourcing, and welfare activities. And there is also another issue, that is the capping of the expenditure. That means only 50% should be provided for legal aid. Out of this fund, only 50% can be provided for legal aid, 25% for outreach, and 25% for alternative dispute resolution or the mediation. And the next is the low per capita spending. So national average, it is 6 to 7 rupees, but you can see that several states they are contributing only 2 and sometimes 3 to 5 rupees. And the next is shrinking para legal workforce. So these are the volunteers who are engaging in providing legal service to the people. And between 2019 and 24, there is a drop of 38% of these paralegal volunteers, and the ratio also fell to 3.1% per 3.1 per lakh population. And the next is deployment has also declined, because out of the 53,000 trained paralegal volunteers, only 14,000 are deployed. And the low honorarium is another major issue. For example, the states like Kerala, they are paying the volunteers nearly 750 rupees per day, but the same time the states, some states, nearly 22 states are paying only 500 rupees, and in 3 states are paying only 250 rupees per day to the volunteers. And the next is the legal aid council scheme. So this was started in 2022 to represent only the accused persons, and this in 2023-24, the allocated 200 crore rupees is totally utilized, and in the 2020-24-25 there is a drop to 147.9 crore. So this is showing the mismanagement or the inefficient utilization of the fund allocated for this purpose. And coming to the solutions to address this issue, that includes expanding the reach of the legal aid through establishing more legal clinics. And the next is the boosting funding and utilization. That includes removing the restraints on the state level legal services authority, and the and removing the strict capping on the expenditure, and relaxing the rigid spending guidelines. So like I mentioned, according to the 2023 guidelines, there is a restriction in the spending that should be removed, and increasing the per capita legal aid spending. So certain states are providing only 2 rupees, and certain states are providing only 2 to 3 rupees. So this has to be changed. And the next is the strengthening paralegal volunteers. So like I mentioned, now the 38% drop has reported in the paralegal volunteers, and out of the 53,000 trained, only 14,000 got deployed. So this has to be addressed. And the next is scale and stabilizing the defense council. So we can see that 2023-24 allocated 200 fund was fully utilized, but now the allocated fund, the utilized fund got dropped to 147 crore. So this is showing the mismanagement of the fund. And the next is improving quality and accountability. For example, the authorities has to be more active in organizing adalat and all. And the next is strengthening the human resource. That includes providing training for the workers or the officials. At the same time, deploying more staff for providing legal aid and advice. So these are the reforms that we can bring to ensure more to strengthen our legal aid system in India. So with this, we will move to the next article. In the face of US tariff global volatility, India must maintain a steady hand. The article is taken from Indian Express. So we know that the Trump administration has once again imposed a 25% tariff on Indian exports, targeting the sectors of textiles, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and automobiles. And this action from the United States can lead to a potential loss of rupees $30 billion in export earning, and this can also lead to a temporary shock, a strain in India's GDP and employment due to the supply chain disruption. So now we are going to see what is a real concern in the India-US trade relation. First is the concern associated with the agriculture market access. We know that India is not ready to open the rural economy for the foreign powers, particularly the dairy and agriculture markets, and this is creating a lot of dissatisfaction in USA. And because we know that the soul of India lies in the Indian villages, therefore protecting the rural economy is very important for ensuring inclusive development. And the next is the energy and the defense ties with the Russia. We know that followed by the Russian invasion in Ukraine in 2022, the Western nations imposed a sanction on Russian oil, but Russia had other plans. Russia sold the oil to India for a very low cost, and you can see that comparing with the financial year 2022, in the 2025 you can see that the oil from India's oil import from Russia surged from 2% to 36%, and this strong partnership with Russia is creating a lot of dissatisfaction in Western world. And the next is the defense dependence on Russia. So according to the research published by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute in 2024, nearly 60% of India's military inventory is Russian origin. And what is the present condition? So how this? So we already mentioned that the action from the United States can lead to a potential loss of $30 billion from in export earning, and this can lead to a short-term shock in the GDP and employment because of the supply chain disruption. But at the same time, India need not to worry that much. India need not to worry that much because we have a strong domestic consumption. So if you look into the case of India-US exporting, you can see that India's export to US just contributes only 2% of India's GDP. But that is not the case of private consumption. The private consumption in India contributes nearly 60% of India's GDP, according to the World Bank report of 2023. Therefore, this strong private consumption can act as a buffer against this type of shock. For example, if you take the case of Germany or Vietnam, if you take the case of Germany, you can see that the German economy mainly depends on the export of the automobiles. If there is a sanction on their export, then in that case, the Germany will suffer. But that is not the case of India. India, we have a strong private consumption that forms nearly 60% of India's GDP. And the next is the concern associated with the balance of the monetary policy. So we can see that in the month of July, nearly $1.4 billion was pulled from the Indian market, and this led to a depreciation of the Indian rupee by 2% in the month of July. But no need to worry because the inflation is still stable. And we can also see that even though there are a lot of volatilities in the international community, still the core sectors of India is resilient, particularly the service, fintech companies, electronics, and the consumer goods. Coming to the global context and the geopolitical real events, so we can see that in the recent times, especially since 2020, in the post-pandemic time, you can see that there is a rise of regionalism in the international scenario. The countries are more concerned about their domestic economy rather than globalization or the liberalization, and that's what we are seeing in the USA, followed by the coming of the Trump administration. So not only India, even the USA imposed sanctions on its own partners like UK, EU, and Japan, and the selective protectionism. Now the USA is planning, for managing their own economy, their own domestic functions rather than going for globalization. And coming to the evolving globalization, like I mentioned, the rise of economic nationalism. That means it's a reflection of regionalism in the economy, in the international scenario, and weakening of the multilateral rule-based trading order. For example, recently we can see that not only WTO, even the United Nations, all these multilateral forums are getting weaker these days, and the diplomacy becoming more tactical and interest-based rather than ideology-based that existed in the last century. So strategic takeaway for India. So what India can do? First is avoiding reactive concessions. That means we need no need to worry. We don't need to worry about that, about the action from the United States, because we can say that we have a strong private consumption. Therefore, we should not sacrifice our agriculture self-reliance or technological policy under the tariff pressure. We can still march forward with our own plans because because we have a very strong private consumption that acts as a buffer against these type of shocks. And the next is leverage strength in bargaining. That means we can go for energy diversification, and we can also go for indigenous manufacturing of the defense equipments. We have a DRDO, right? So we can go for indigenous manufacturing. And recently India, we developed DEW MK, that is a directed energy weapon. We developed our own laser technology, and India is the fourth nation in the world to have laser technology in the military, and that we developed indigenously through the DRDO. And we can also rely on other partners, but that should not be much. And the next is reinforcing economic diplomacy. That means we can engage in multilateral mini deals with other countries to address the structural issues. For example, if you take the Indian economy, we can see that the agriculture sector and the manufacturing sector is lagging a little bit behind, comparing with the service sector. So we can engage in mini deals with other countries for to address the structural issues in the Indian economy. And the next is engaging with other partners like European Union, ASEAN, and G20 for plurilateral alternatives. And recently, the best example, we concluded a free trade agreement with the UK, and that is aiming for improving our digital economy and the service sector. So coming to the mains practice question. The question is, in an era of shifting global trade norms and geopolitical realignments, how should India recalibrate its economic and strategic posture to mitigate the risk of US-centric protectionism without compromising its domestic imperatives? So it's a 15 marks question. Write the answer, post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. Now it's time to move to the next article. Hello everyone, welcome to the daily prelims practice session. First question, with reference to Indian monsoon, consider the following statements. Statement 1, the development of depressions over land area has no significant influence on monsoon rainfall distribution. Statement 2, ENSO neutral condition indicate that the sea surface temperature in the Central Pacific Ocean are at or near long-term average level. Which of the above statements is or are correct? So they are asking about the correct statement. So here the correct statement is actually 2 only. But the statement 1 is incorrect because the development of depression over the land area has significant influence on the Indian monsoon rainfall distribution, because we discussed the monsoon trough, right? The shift of the monsoon trough towards the foothills of Himalayas will lead to a temporary break in the monsoon rainfall in majority of the areas in India except the Himalayan foothills. So the statement 1 is incorrect, while the statement 2, ENSO neutral condition indicates long-term average temperature of the Central Pacific. Yes, this statement is very correct because during the time of neutral phase there will be no La Nina, no El Nina. Therefore, we can understand the average temperature, the long-term average temperature of the Central Pacific. Therefore, the statement 2 is incorrect. Therefore, the correct answer is option B, 2 only. Coming to the next question. With reference to the International Court of Justice and global climate governance, consider the following statements. Statement 1, the International Court of Justice advisory opinion on the climate obligation is binding. No, it is not binding on all UN member states under the UNFCCC framework. No, this statement is incorrect because it is not binding. And coming to the statement 2, the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities has been incorporated into international law through ICJ statute. No. This common but differentiated responsibility is recognized and this is reflected in various international framework, but it is not incorporated. Therefore, this statement is also incorrect, while the correct answer is option D, neither 1 nor 2. So they are asking for the correct statement. None of them are correct. Third question, consider the following with respect to National Legal Services Authority. Statement 1, it issues guidelines for the state legal services authorities to implement the legal programs. Yes, this statement is correct. The National Legal Service Society or Service Authority will give guidelines to the State Legal Services Authority. Yes, this statement is correct. Statement 2, persons in custody and victims of natural disasters are the persons who are not eligible for free legal aid service under the NALSA, that is National Legal Service Authority Act. No, the objective of the National Legal Service Authority is to provide free legal aid to the vulnerables. Therefore, the victims are eligible to get the legal service under the National Legal Service Authority. Therefore, the incorrect statement. So they are asking for the incorrect statement. The incorrect statement is 2 only. The statement 1 is correct. The statement 2 is incorrect. Let's check. Yes, the correct answer is option B, 2 only. With this, we are coming to the conclusion for today's newspaper analysis. If you like the video, hit the like button, give your feedbacks as comments, and share this content with your friends. And before leaving this channel, don't forget to subscribe and also hit the bell icon to receive on-time update from Shankar IAS Academy. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for listening to me. Have a nice day.